was driving home late one night after visiting my parents in a neighboring town. The drive wasn't too long, about an hour, but most of it was on a quiet, empty highway that cut through some pretty remote areas. I've always been comfortable driving at night. It's peaceful when there aren't many cars on the road. That night, I was about halfway home when I noticed a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's not uncommon for someone to be behind you on the highway, even late at night. But this car, an older white van, was tailgating me. I mean, really close, like uncomfortably close. I figured maybe they were in a hurry, so I sped up a little to give them some space. But they sped up too, sticking right behind me. That's when I started to feel uneasy. The highway was completely deserted, no other cars in sight, and it stretched for miles with no turns or exits. I decided to slow down and move into the shoulder a bit to let the van pass. But instead of passing me, the van slowed down too, staying right behind me. That's when I started to get nervous. There was no reason for them to be driving this close or following my every move. I flicked on my hazard lights for a moment, hoping they'd get the hint and go around me, but they didn't. After a few more miles of this, I saw a rest stop sign coming up. I decided to pull into it, thinking maybe they'd finally pass me if I got off the road. As I pulled into the rest stop, I glanced in my mirror and saw the van slow down and stop at the entrance. It didn't pull in, but it just sat there, idling. At this point, my heart was racing. I didn't even stop at the rest stop. I just drove straight through and back onto the highway. Within seconds, the van was back behind me, its headlights glaring in my mirror. I was officially panicking now. I reached for my phone to call someone, but of course I had no signal. This was the middle of nowhere, after all. I had no choice but to keep driving. After another few miles, I saw a gas station coming up. It was the first sign of civilization I'd seen in a while, so I decided to pull in. This time the van followed me into the parking lot. I parked near the station's entrance, under the brightest light I could find, and stayed in my car with the doors locked. The van parked a few spaces away, but didn't turn off its engine. I waited, watching in my rearview mirror, but no one got out. I couldn't see inside the van because its windows were tinted. My mind was racing with worst-case scenarios. I decided to act like I was calling someone. I held my phone to my ear and pretended to talk, hoping whoever was in the van would see that and leave. A few minutes later, the van finally pulled out of the lot and drove off down the highway. I stayed at the gas station for a while after that, just to make sure they weren't waiting for me further up the road. Once I felt safe, I got back on the highway and drove straight home, keeping an eye on my rearview mirror the entire way. I never saw that van again, but the whole experience left me shaken. I don't know what their intentions were. Maybe it was just someone messing with me, or maybe it was something worse. All I know is, if I hadn't stopped at that gas station, I might not have been so lucky.